I do not believe in genetics. Genetics are a scientific concept that there is a building block, DNA, which determines the difference between different organisms. It's instructions that help us develop into a certain outcome. And so the difference between an oak tree and a cat, a dog, a human being, these are genetic differences. People who take genetics seriously in a colloquial sense, and we have to differentiate here between the different ways that genetics are used and believed in. I'm talking about belief in genetics and using that term specifically. Controversially, of course, in a clickbait manner, but when people say they believe in genetics or don't believe in genetics, is really different from a factual or empirical statement. Bertrand Russell came up with the idea of the floating teacup, that there could be a floating teacup right now orbiting the sun. You wouldn't know, I wouldn't know, we can't falsify that claim. Genetics, as I've described and just laid out, it's a real, theory. It's a scientific theory that helps us understand biology. But what about politics? Maybe I should, to be most accurate and less inflammatory, I should say I don't believe in political genetics. I don't believe in genetic theories of politics and genetic strategies. And I want to try to explain why that is and make this as short a video as possible. Of course, leaving out all the other things that people are going to ask, the follow-up questions, but we really want to keep this one tight. Genetics is a fixed quality. And if you walk around evaluating people on the basis of a genetic marker, like how they look, in a political sense, in a systematic sort of statistical way, and people do this with race, they could do it with other concepts as well, but if you do that, then you are saying that people's value comes from a fixed quality. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea. And most people hear that and they're not really willing to listen to anymore, because what they're used to is some kind of attack, some kind of shame or guilt tactic. And there are people for whom that doesn't really work because they've been shamed and guilted for a number of things, and it's just not effective anymore. Like, you go up to somebody and you say, you're a racist. It's not very effective anymore, because I think we've overused those terms to the point where they've kind of lost their meaning and just become pejoratives and insults devoid of content. But that's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to point the finger at people and say, although I could, but that's not the purpose of this video, is to point fingers and say, oh, well, I'm morally superior to you because, I don't categorize people on a genetic basis. Because the implicit argument there is an argument concerning victimization and oppression. The implication is that the person who is generalizing, stereotyping on the basis of something that is ultimately genetic, or supposed to be genetic, the presupposition is that you have power. That you're, for example, a business owner, and you're going to hire and fire people on the basis of a genetic or supposed genetic quality. Or that you are a representative of the government, that you're a scarecrow or a stand-in for the white supremacist superstructure, that you represent Bill Gates, that you represent someone with real power, politically, economically, militarily, that you are a colonizer, and that in having these attitudes, you're causing really bad outcomes for people of color, for example. That is, I think, basically factually untrue generally when that argument is rolled out. Most of the people I know or who I've encountered who are the most prejudiced, let's say, are people who really don't have any power at all. You know, they maybe have a podcast with a couple thousand subscribers or something like that. Maybe they make a middle class income. You know, they've got a little fan base of people who are ultimately very similar to themselves, you know, sort of teetering on the edge of middle class, teetering on the edge of a planned obsolescence in our economy, teetering on the edge of financial ruin, legal ruin, butting up against a budding social credit score. Those are two different butting. Butting and budding. Know the difference. The point is that when someone says, well, I believe in race or I believe in genetics and I think everything should be organized around genetics, most of these people are not in any sort of position of power over anyone else. And they don't actually have the ability to make POC lives better or worse. And so the implication there, when people generally make the argument, they say, you know, those beliefs are harmful. I agree those beliefs are harmful, but for whom? They're not generally harmful for POC. Because in general, the people who hold those beliefs and promote those beliefs, I don't think are actually in positions of power. So who are they harmful for? They're harmful for the people themselves. That's the argument I'm making. I'm not making you're a big, powerful, scary, mean man if you believe in genetics in the sense that political genetics. You're a big, scary, mean man. You should stop because you're victimizing people. That's not my argument. My argument is I don't believe in genetics politically. Because I don't think it's helpful to me. I don't go around valuing myself or other people on the basis of a fixed trait from their birth, that this is your background, this is your heritage, this is where you came from, and so you have inherent value based on that or not. Because I think that kind of is a very right-wing aristocratic mindset that essentially, you know, you have a certain birthright, you're born into the world with a certain fixed position. But I believe in meritocracy. I believe that a person's value doesn't come from their fixed qualities, but it comes from what they do with that. It comes from the growth that they're willing to undergo, which requires pain and it requires hard work. And I find that people who have been victimized, who've lost their social position, who feel that the system doesn't work for them, they latch onto fixed traits in the hope that the United States government's going to collapse, there's going to be a civil war, and that when the dust settles, the natural order, quote unquote, will rearrange with them on top and everyone else on the bottom. The liberals who can't get a job and special snowflakes, those people will be on the bottom of society, and the natural aristocrats will take their place. This is a coping mechanism. Ultimately, when you run through the argument to its natural conclusion, this is a coping mechanism for people who are not having a good time, for people who really, I think, have a very negative story about their life. And I think it's sad, and I think it's hard to help these people because when you try to explain, like, your fixed mindset is not helping you. It's not helping you achieve goals. It's not helping you personally to become a better person or be the best person you can be. It's also not helping you evaluate other people. You know, just because, and I've pretty much every debate I've ever had has been, at least on YouTube, has been with a white person, ostensibly a white passing person. And, you know, this natural sort of racial affiliation or whatever from genetics is not... it's not really appearing. I guess people could make the argument, oh, someone's technically white or not. I'm not really interested in that. I've discussed that before. But needless to say, I just don't see it. I don't see these kind of ethnic genetic interests arranging people that the only reason we don't have that is because of ideology, because I look in the past and I see the rise of racial conceptions, national conceptions on a civilizational scale, or even on the scale of the nation state, that was not a natural organization that spontaneously arose. That was something that was ideologically inculcated into people. We have to differentiate between ethnocentrism. This is the thing nationalists aren't willing to do. We have to differentiate between ethnocentrism and between an abstract concept of genetics as a fixed trait that creates a mode of social organization that is optimal. We have to differentiate that because everyone has a concept of who they are and the type of people they like to be around, and there's a certain intuitive, like meets like phenomenon historically, and we see in the ancient world the way in which people were aristocratic and people did create lineages. In Egypt, they're practicing incest, and we know that people have been concerned with heritage for thousands of years. We understand that, but we have to also understand that the social organization, the mode of a majoritarian nation state is a relatively new concept that evolved over thousands of years. And it's not simply that there's no such thing as the natural mode of human organization. I mean, the natural mode of human organization is, Papua New Guinea or the Amazon rainforest. That's the quote unquote national mode of natural mode of human organization. Everything else is civilization, artificial, constructed with ideology. So I don't know. We have to differentiate between these fixed traits and traits that we grow into, traits that require effort and hard work, and a certain belief in free will and the ability to forge your own destiny. Those are the people who I think are most valuable, the ones who really are determined to make the most of their situation rather than to wish and hope and pray that things just kind of naturally arrange themselves. There's all sorts of contradictions here where I don't think anyone can be like a pure genetic determinist. I mean, that's so ridiculous. I suppose there might be some like anti-free will people out there who believe things like that, but on a philosophical level. But, most people who think about politics do believe that there's some level of agency that you need to go from point A to point B. And my thing is we need to focus on that. People want to talk about learning disabilities and certain, if someone has an IQ below 70, and say, oh, well, this is a genetic thing. How can you deny that? How can you deny a relationship between genetics and crime or something like that? But I'm not dealing with that. I don't think anyone should be dealing with that. I think if you are dealing with that, you probably need to move out of your neighborhood, which in my opinion isn't hard because I've, moved all around the country. I think that you do need to get some money together for a car. I don't think that's impossible. And I think if you need help with that, you should reach out to people and you can get that help. But you should be determined to do that, and you should be looking for positive, constructive ways to do that. But I'm not dealing with crime, and I'm not dealing with people who have an IQ of 70. I'm looking for my eyes and my focus, my mind, my heart and soul is focused on the best and the brightest and the most creative, and finding those people, encouraging those people, and people who are willing to have a focus on growth and change and challenging themselves, stepping out of their comfort zone. Not, well, I'm simply good because of my genetics, or I'm simply bad because of my genetics, or those people or these people are better or worse. I don't think that makes for any sort of general, a good, productive political discourse in terms of actually organizing people, actually getting people together. The people in my mind who focus on fixed qualities the hardest, who are like, well, I was simply born X, Y, or Z, and therefore I have to be around such a type of people, and I have to reject those other people. People who have that mindset are the worst social organizers ever. They have the worst social skills. It's really atrocious, and those people need help. Some of them are very stubborn. Everyone's an adult. I can't force people to get help if they don't want to get help. But, for those who are, I guess, willing to listen to a 15-minute video, I appreciate, if you agreed with what I had to say. Of course, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Twitter at Jokull, Jokkul. That's 2 L's instead of 1. In any case, if you didn't like what I had to say, leave a comment. Leave a mean, nasty comment, insult me personally and whatnot, because the engagement helps promote this video on YouTube so other people can see it. Thank you for your time and attention. I appreciate you all. Have a great day. Bye-bye.